Hello everybody and welcome back to the pod. It all depends on the situation. I am your host, Eric, and once again joined by my co-host and wife, Ashley.
Hola.
So today's episode, if you can't tell by the title, is going to be all about one of our favorite nostalgic fandoms of all time. We've got lots of good memories built up with is Pokemon and the Pokemon franchise.
Yeah, we started thinking about this because we've done a couple episodes about like nostalgic video games and things like that, and
we touched on a little bit of things, especially the video games regarding Pokemon, because it was, a quintessential part of our childhood. We're going to dive deeper into it because we're going to dedicate a whole episode basically confining to the Pokemon fandom.
Yes, and later on we'll talk about how we met one of the most important people in the Pokemon fandom.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll get to that later.
Mm-hmm. But going back to the very beginning, when this whole thing really took off, because there's a lot of people that get into the franchise now that didn't or weren't even around back when this thing all started. Mm-hmm. So, and it really started, back in like the mid-90s?
Yeah, because I remember the very first time that I ever saw anything Pokemon related. It was fourth grade. That's how much of a core memory this is for me, because I remember what grade I was in.
Yep.
It was fourth grade, Mr. Sailor's class. And I used to watch like cartoons and stuff before school, like most people did. And the show came on, like with little animals, little bug things. And I remember it was the episode, later found out it was called Pokemon. Mm-hmm. It was the episode with Caterpie. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I loved Caterpie. I thought it was the cutest thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Caterpie is like a little green caterpillar like Pokemon.
And from then on, I was just like hooked. I'm like, oh my God, it's so cute.
Yep. What really stuck out to me was, I think the creator, I'm probably going to bungle his name, but I think it's Satoshi Tajiri. Mm-hmm. Not 100% sure on that, but I know he created Pokemon because he used to go out and collect bugs, and he grew up in a small town over in Japan. And when I was exposed to the very first episode of the anime, also in fourth grade, so Mrs. Rino's class, woohoo. And the very first episode talked about how 10-year-olds can get a beginner's license to become a Pokemon trainer. And that was speaking right to our demographic because we were both 10 years old in fourth grade at the time. I'm like, oh, they're talking about me. So getting all
I could be a Pokemon trainer.
Exactly. So it was catered right for us at the perfect time. Mm-hmm. I remember just watching that first anime episodes going, oh my God, what is this thing? So I would get into it. All my buddies would get into like various things about the fandom. So some would get into the video games, others would get into the card games. I personally got into the anime a lot. I thought it was awesome.
Well, I got into the anime first because I remember that's like they started showing it on TV, and I remember I started watching it, and then slowly other kids in class like, "Oh, did you watch Pokemon this morning? Did you watch it?" And like it kind of like took over the whole class.
Oh yeah.
After a certain point.
The whole fandom really exploded back in the late 90s because, oh my gosh, as soon as it really caught on to the mainstream, they literally called it Pokemania. There was issues in Time for Kids magazine and Time magazine that showed just how crazy the whole thing was going. So, and I remember going to Burger King had promotions with Pokeballs and all kinds of crazy stuff. And then there was the first movie, which is kind of like a watershed for, anime movies out in theaters, and it made a pretty decent amount of money in theaters.
Well, because I remember watching the show and then getting into the Game Boy games. Because I had my green Game Boy Color. That was the first Game Boy I ever had, was the green Game Boy Color.
I had a turquoise blue one, which was really cool, but that took a while to get. I think it was only probably around 6th or 7th grade I finally got a Game Boy Color. But what was your go-to Pokemon Color cartridge game?
Well, my first one was red version. That's the one that I had.
That's what I had, too. But both red version.
I think the one I played the most was yellow.
Yeah, yellow was interesting. It didn't have like the broken game or the broken codes with getting missing no that would allow you to like get infinite items or something like that.
Well, you played the Game Boy games way more than I did.
I would constantly go over to Sean's house all the time and just kind of, he'd be out there playing with my younger brother Ryan, and I'd be sitting there in his living room just like slogging away at Pokemon going, oh, this game's awesome. So just mesmerized by it.
Well, and then we were talking before we started recording about our starters that we chose.
What is your preferred starter between Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle?
Well, I always went for Charmander.
Yep, wrong answer.
No.
Nope.
Correct answer.
Oh, sorry. So
No.
And for me, even though I had red version, which Dawn Charizard on the cover, which usually you think red version players would get Charmander's or starter, I picked Squirtle, which is the right one to choose. So yes.
I mean, it's okay. He's cute, so it's okay.
Actually, now that I'm older, if I ever go back and replay the games, I actually choose Bulbasaur. It makes the most sense.
It really does.
Because the first couple of, first 3 gyms, he's strong against them. So it just makes sense to choose Bulbasaur over the other 2.
Look how much I'm into reptiles.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of makes sense that I chose
because you have
lizard.
bearded dragons and lizards, so of course you like a Charmander.
I always pick Charmander first.
Yeah. I just think it's so sad. Apparently it's the lore with Charmanders, if its tail goes out, it dies.
Yeah, I know.
That always bothered me, even back then, even still today. It's that's kind of
in the anime. Remember in the anime how Ash gets his Charmander? Mm-hmm. Because the one trainer, Damien, asshole, abandons him.
Who needs a Charmander? It's like that piece of crap. You just want to reach through the screen and just strangle the guy.
I know. So, and he was just going to abandon him, let his tail go out.
His stupid, weak Pokemon. Yeah. Oh, that piece of crap.
Why did he sound like he was in a British boy band?
I don't know, but it was the same voice actor, for a whole bunch of different characters in the Pokemon anime. They recycled so many voice actors. But yeah, it was just, in particular, that British guy. He also had the same voice as Bill in the animated series, too.
Oh, that's right, he did. Bill was a British guy.
I'm Bill, the Pokemon researcher. I'm stuck in a Kabuto costume. Let me out. So, and then Brock was ready to, beat his ass. So funny. But, oh my gosh, yeah, I remember watching so many of the Pokemon anime, getting up in the morning and watching the TV shows. Oh.
Well, and I remember being a kid, for some reason, that was a thing, I remember new anime coming out early in the morning. Like I mentioned I forget if I talked about this in one of our other podcasts, when Sailor Moon first came out.
Oh, yeah.
It only played at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, super early before the buses.
And I would wake my ass up and watch Sailor Moon. Same thing with Pokemon. It would always be on super early in the morning, and I would wake up and watch Pokemon.
Yeah, Pokemon did open the doors with a lot of anime, because there was that, and there was also Dragon Ball I ended up getting into after watching Pokemon, and it's just whoa.
I vaguely remember my mom and dad waking me up so I wouldn't miss Pokemon. I have now that we're talking about it's coming back to me, I have a vague memory of them waking me up so I wouldn't miss it.
I've got a very core memory of mine, because I was always, kind of nervous going up and playing sports when all eyes were on me, that type of thing. I don't know if it's performance anxiety with that type of thing, or everybody's watching you. But I remember my dad, he said, if you hit a baseball in the middle of a game, I will go out and buy you a Pokemon VHS tape. And that, for some whatever reason, motivated me to no end. And I cracked the ball, I was playing baseball at the time. I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Cracked the ball, went in between first and second plate. And I ended up getting on first base. I'm like, I just got a VHS tape. I got a Pokemon VHS tape. So good.
Motivated by Pokemon.
Yep. And I think it was the Sisters of Cerulean City or something. So I remember distinctly going out to, I think it was Family Video, and actually picking up a copy.
Really?
So, yeah. It was so awesome. Oh my gosh. Getting a copy of Pokemon. Kicking myself for not keeping all those things in pristine shape and hanging on to them now, because a lot of those things are now collector's items.
Oh, well, we were at the exchange seeing how much some of these old Pokemon games are.
Yeah, just any Pokemon merchandise in general.
They're expensive.
Yep. Yeah, the original cartridge, even though it probably retailed for around $40 when it first came out, maybe, it's ballooned up to buying them used now is $100 plus. So depending on certain areas. So, and even the Pokemon Coliseum for the GameCube, still over $200. It's crazy.
Well, and I think my interest in Pokemon waned a little bit as I got older, because I remember I had the Game Boy Advance, and I don't think I ever bought any of the Pokemon games for that. I think I stopped playing after Yellow.
Yep. Well, I got into the Season 2, which was Gold, Silver, and Crystal version. I got into that one pretty hardcore, because I finally had my Game Boy Color, and I could finally play all this stuff, so I would take it out to Boy Scout camp and everything. And everybody else would be making a campfire. I'd be sitting back in my tent playing Pokemon Gold on my blue Game Boy. It was so good.
Well, the one thing I really got into was Pokemon cards. I never played the card game. I just wanted to collect them.
That was another big thing that I got into, and I had the brilliant idea of hey, if I can buy my cards with my friend Mark Conti's cards, we'll have double the collection. Well, that's a life lesson learned after that, because he proceeded to trade it off almost all my best cards. Pidgeotto card for a Parasect. It's so hard to find a stupid Pidgeotto, and you trade it for a common Parasect. Give me a break. So we had a bit of a falling out from that.
Yeah.
But Yeah, the card games. Kevin got more into the card games than he did I think the Game Boy game. So he'd be good to have on for another Pokemon pod in the future.
Well, I remember Toys R Us used to have Pokemon card game tournaments.
Yep.
And I swear I remember one of the reasons I didn't want to do it because I thought the loser had to hand over
the best card.
They had to hand over some of their cards. And I remember, like, I don't want to give up my cards.
Yeah, that's a stupid rule if that was ever a thing.
I swear at one of the Toys R Us, I swear it was the one in Canton, that they had a tournament there that if the loser had to hand over some of their cards to the other player. And I'm like, that's messed up.
Yep, I wouldn't know. I was never a Toys R Us kid. So.
Wah,
Yeah,
wah. I can't believe you never went to Toys R Us.
Nope. The one thing I can't believe you never played Pokemon Snap for the N64.
I never did.
You got into the sequel, which came out just a couple of years ago, Pokemon New Snap.
For the Switch?
For the Switch.
I
Fantastic
love that
game. Yeah,
love
love it. All kinds of extra little hidden areas, secret cheats, all kinds of cool things. But yet the original you missed out on. You could actually take a copy of that cartridge to a Blockbuster and print off your photos.
Which I don't know why I never got into it because
it was awesome.
I had an N64. I think that might have been at the time when my interest in Pokemon was
starting to wane
a little bit. I mean, I've always loved Pokemon, but you know how like things
go through phases,
ebbs and flows, you know.
Yep. I remember, when I first got into it, Mom and Dad were like, "This is just a fad. You guys will grow out of it." Blah blah.
Yeah,
blah,
here
blah,
we
blah.
are at 30, almost 36 years old.
Come
still.
talk to us in 2016 rolled around when Pokemon Go first came out.
Oh God! And I'm thinking back to the cards too. Another core memory I have of Pokemon. My dad used to take me to Toys R Us all the time, and I would get the little card packs. And I remember we went to the Toys R Us in Canton, and I remember I wanted a Charizard card because that was the card to have.
That was the ultimate card to have growing up back in the late 90s. It's like if you had that card, you had it made. You were like the king Pokemon or queen of Pokemon.
So I got my cards. We went back into the car, and I couldn't wait to get home to open them. So I opened up my card, and I'm living through, and holy shit, there was a Charizard, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, it's a Charizard. I mean, granted, I don't think it was the super rare. It wasn't like first edition or something.
Yeah, first edition cards are the ones that are worth big bucks.
And I was so excited. I had it in its own special little sleeve, and I kept it. And actually, I at one point had 3 Charizard cards, and a member of my family stole 2 of them. So now I only have 1, and I have no clue what happened to those other cards. But
I never had a Charizard card growing up. I always wanted one, but I ended up getting one later on. Obviously, as an adult, going back and collecting stuff. So I now have one. But no, back in the day. There was actually a kid named Larry I went to school with. I think his dad owned a card shop. The dude had 11 holographic Charizard cards from both English and I think Japanese. It was awesome. Looking at his collection, I'm like, dude, Larry, this is amazing. And he's just like, I'm not trading them. I'm like, I don't blame you. So
I wouldn't. Well, I remember my dad ordering me on eBay some Japanese cards. I think he got me a Japanese Mewtwo. And then I remember a Chikorita. That was actually the first time I saw something outside, a Pokemon outside of the original 150 or 151, because he ordered it for me off of eBay. I'm like, what's this? What Pokemon is this? I've never seen it before.
Well, that's kind of like when we first saw Pokemon, the first movie when it came out, that elephant Pokemon popped up. We're like, what the heck is that?
Oh, that was Donphan, wasn't it?
Well, that came out in season 2, but at that point when the movie released, we're like, what is that thing?
Yeah, I remember watching it in the theater, and I'm like, I was freaking out because I had never seen that one before.
And that little mini movie before Pokemon, the first movie, Pikachu's Vacation, it
that
showed
was so
Meryl,
cute.
the little blue Pokemon
I
mouse.
love Meryl.
But everybody's like, what is that? So, and for a while, people did have a name for it. They called it Pika Blue, if you remember.
I never heard that.
Yeah, people would actually call Meryl Pika Blue because there was this
never heard
mock-up of Pikachu that was blue.
Huh.
So, but yeah, people always called Meryl Pika Blue before they actually knew the name.
Well, do you remember when Pokemon, the first movie, came out, that if you went to the movie, you got the Ancient Mew card?
Mm-hmm.
Did you get one?
I didn't because I wasn't one of the first, I forget how many hundreds that showed up at the thing, because we ended up seeing it, I think, a couple weeks after it released. So, but I know me and James, we were the first ones that saw Pokemon the third movie. Out of anybody in town, we were the first ones in line, and we zipped in to go see that thing, and we ended up getting our cards for that one.
Well, so when the first movie came out, when I saw it, I did not get the Ancient Mew card, because I remember I was so bummed. I went to go see it, and they were already out. But then my cousin's cousin, he somehow ended up with 4 Ancient Mew cards. And so I remember one Saturday night I was at my cousin's house and he was there and he had all of his Pokemon cards and I looked at he was showing me. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. You have 4 Ancient Mews. And I was saying how I didn't get one. So his dad comes over. He's like, hey, why don't you give her one? She didn't get one. So he did. And then later on, the little bastard tried to take it back from me. And his dad was
like, oh, I collected these cards. Why am I giving it away for free?
Well, and his dad was like, I don't know if this is the politically correct term nowadays, but I remember specifically him saying, don't be an Indian giver. You gave it to her. Now don't you have to, keep your promise. And that's how I got my Ancient Mew card.
Swindled him.
I didn't swindle him. He gave it to me.
Yep.
Tried to take it back from me.
I remember it was, Pokemon was all the rage. And I remember, like, in the N64, that was the heyday of the N64. And they came out with Pokemon Stadium, which I thought was mind-blowing at the time because you could take your Pokemon cartridge game, get a specialized, like, adapter you put in the back of your N64 controller, plop in your Game Boy game, and then pick up a copy of Pokemon Stadium. You could play or port your Pokemon you caught from the Game Boy game onto the N64 game in 3D on your screen.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like,
cool.
Holy shit.
That was cool.
I remember playing that thing for the first time going, oh my God, just, mind-blowing technology back then. Now we don't even bat an eye. It's like, whatever.
Oh, I know, with all the stuff that's come out now.
But Pokemon Stadium definitely revolutionized the game. Plus, I like the fact that, like, you could actually play on... They have this thing where, like, if you beat, like, all the gym leaders and all the, like, cups and stuff like that, they have different, like, battle sequences. You can unlock the Doduo Game Boy Tower and the Dodrio Game Boy Tower. It allowed you to play it, like, ×2 and ×3 speed on your Game Boy game. So, and you could play it infinitely faster than you could on a regular Game Boy.
Oh, I know, because when you play it, the
pace
music
is so...
like...
It's plotting. You're like, okay.
No, but the music speeds up.
Oh, yeah, it speeds up. That's why I usually mute it and, watch Pokemon while playing Pokemon. So
yeah. But
that was always a cool feature, so I loved Pokemon Stadium. Pokemon Snap was, very close to me because obviously I was a photographer, so...
And I mean, the newer Pokemon Snap I really like, because I like to take pictures and...
Yep. The older one, I remember playing that thing constantly over at my friend Mark's house. So Mark had a lot of Pokemon stuff, kind of like what I did. That's why we combined our card collection together. We're like, hey, we're both big into this. Let's combine stuff together. Ugh.
Yeah, bad move.
Yeah. So, and he actually had the Pokemon Monopoly game. And I had the Pokemon Master Trainer Pog game, which, if you go like trying to figure out how to play that game, it was tricky as all
I've
get
never.
out. It was goofy. It was really cool little collector Pogs, though.
See, I was more into like collecting stuff. Well, remember, was it Burger King that came out with the big Pokeballs that had the gold plated stuff, like Pokemon
That's like
card
an
inside?
Extra thing you can get for like $1.99. You could get like, a little really cool looking Pokeball that glowed, or like it was very like shiny on the very top. You opened it up and it would have like a little gold plate card inside. That was like what, a Mewtwo, a Pikachu.
I think we have a Jigglypuff.
There's a Jigglypuff. I think it was 6 of them all together. But yeah, they were like basically $2 a piece if you bought like a Whopper combo. Which, boy, I miss those prices these days.
Oh, same.
But those are cool little collector's items. And then like for the kids' meals, they would give you like the little collapsible Pokeballs that had cool Pokemon toys inside, and you could actually attach it to your belt. But they actually issued a recall on those things because there was like little kids that were like 3 years old that would collapse, the ball around their lips and suffocate them.
Oh my God.
So there was actually like a nationwide recall on those Pokeball toys. So yeah, and they stopped that, campaign pretty quick.
So they would close it on their mouth?
They would collapse on their mouth. If you actually check out one of those old Pokeball toys that, they linked up to your like belt loop, you could actually like collapse them down around like a little kid's lips. Little kids were doing that. So they recalled them.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember any of the other Pokemon merch. Well, we finally got a Pokedex.
Oh, yeah. The old Tiger Pokedex.
Which I think I had one as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Had a Pokedex.
Never had one as a kid, so once again.
And we finally got one.
Mm-hmm. But, oh my gosh. Like there was this weird little coin game that you could get too that had like different numbers on the sides, and you could do like inflict different damage and stuff like that. Pogs for some reason was a big thing in the 90s.
I remember Pogs.
Yeah, I the only Pogs I really collected, I guess, was kind of Pokemon stuff. I never collected any of the other goofy things. So there was a marble shooter game. So that was an interesting one for a Pokemon collector's item. The cards were like all the rage though. Like if you still had an original base booster pack card, I literally saw one for sale going for like $275 for like a Venusaur booster pack. Just one little card pack, like 12 cards or 11 cards inside. Yeah. You basically have like a $300 bill just sitting right there.
Well, didn't you just see something on Marketplace tonight? You like somebody had a whole bunch of fossil booster packs?
Booster deck or like a booster box, which means it's like a bundle of the cards inside. They're trying to sell it for $8,500.
That's insane.
And they'll probably get it.
They probably will.
Which is nuts. Yeah, if you've got, because first it came out with the base edition, which are basically, they have Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur on the cover of these card booster packs. Then they came out with, I think, the Jungle Collection. So it had pictures of like plant Pokemon and stuff like that. And then was the Fossil. That's what this guy is trying to sell. A Fossil booster box, which came with a whole, like, it's a box of booster packs. And they're trying to sell that for basically like 10 grand.
Dang.
But if you have the original base collection cards, oh my gosh, I can't imagine what they're going for right now. So it's got to be more than 10 grand.
Oh, I'm sure.
So you can basically trade that for a car. Isn't that nuts? A bunch of, like a handful of cards from the past. Mind-boggling. If only we could go back and tell our past selves, don't play with anything, just keep it in a box.
Just keep it. Oh, yeah, like that would go. That would work.
Well, even, like, in the box, like, Pokemon Red and Blue and Yellow version are probably going for, like, what, well over $500 at this point.
Oh, yeah.
It's nuts.
Man, if only.
Mm-hmm. But, I just remember Pokemon's all the rage. I remember going out to, because it was still in 4th grade at the time when we first got into Pokemon. My friend James and I were like big Poke fanatics back then. So we actually, back then, McDonald's used to have cool play places with ball pits. And a couple of the ball pits kind of like a couple of the balls from the ball pit would roll out into the parking lot. We ended up scooping up a blue one and a green one. We cut it out so it kind of looked like Pac-Man, painted the bottom white, boom, it's a Pokeball.
Oh.
And then we would actually go to the local convenience store and get Lunchables. On the back of Lunchables at the time, actually had special edition like Pokemon cutouts.
Oh, I remember those.
And we cut out, I remember I found like a special edition one, which he didn't have. And we basically would load Pokemon into the little, McDonald's Play Place ball, and we'd be playing Pokemon like over on the, blacktop playground during recess.
Funny.
So very core memory for both me and James. We had a blast doing that. So that's going way back in grade school. But it really resonated with us on such a deep level. And such a good message, too, because the show itself was very uplifting and very, had a lot of good moral lessons and a lot of very commonsensical things to learn. And always ended up on a kind of a good note.
Yeah. The one thing that always drove me crazy in the anime was how Ash would give away his Pokemon.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, he wasn't, other than, obviously he cared for Pikachu and, did all that stuff, but you still cannot watch Bye Bye Butterfree.
I cannot, to this day, I cannot watch Bye Bye Butterfree. I hate it.
Caterpie, Metapod, and Butterfree. My gosh. What more could he do to not be deserving of a Pokemon? That's basically Poke abuse, if you think about it.
But think about this in a real life application. That's like giving away your pets.
Yep.
I could not.
Yep, he traded it for Eradicate. Bonehead
move.
So he abandoned Metapod, then it proceeded to get stabbed, which eventually, fatefully evolved into Butterfree, thankfully. And then, proceeded to trade away Butterfree. And then basically just said, Butterfree, here you go, I'll release you. So, and I guess they finally had the wrap-up episode because, Ash finally won the tournament after all these years. And if you watch, I think going up to the end credits, it shows him being reunited with Butterfree again.
Good.
So, but that episode, even still today, you say you can't watch it.
I can't do it.
Yeah, it is definitely emotionally taxing.
But, why? I can't.
There are a lot of questionable things. Actually, there were certain episodes in the original anime that didn't release in the United States because of,
Well, wasn't the one with Porygon? Didn't that one get banned?
Yeah,
in the
because
United States?
there was reports of epilepsy because they were flashing from light blues and pinks and whites, and it was just flashing like crazy. And there was also a problem with showing firearms in animes, so that's why you'll see references of Team Rocket, the main antagonists of the Pokemon universe. They'll be like, "These are ice guns we're packing. Ice guns we're packing."
Well, wasn't there an episode also banned in the United States where was it Jesse and James were dressed up as women and James had boobs?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in a bikini and he had boobs and that one got banned.
That one got banned. And then there was also the one where, I was always curious, how did Ash end up with a Tauros? There was an entire, Safari Zone episode that didn't air in the United States because there was like so many use of guns inside of it. And Ash ended up catching like an entire flock of Tauros, which are like big buffalo Pokemon. Yeah. And he had like a whole flock of them. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, but that one never aired. There was a couple other ones that didn't air in the United States.
Yeah. Some
were controversial. Actually, Pokemon the first movie actually edited out like a good chunk of like the beginning of the movie. Because there was like this whole story about like, it was about Dr. Fuji creating Mewtwo was the main story of the, Pokemon the first movie. But, like, it started out, like, he started the cloning process because he wanted to, like, bring back his daughter. So he basically...
trying to clone his daughter.
Trying to clone his daughter and, like, a bunch of other Pokemon. And, like, they all proceeded to, like, fail and die at the beginning. I was like, ugh. So it would have been very traumatizing as a kid to see back then. So I can kind of see why they censored it.
Well, speaking of the first movie, I remember when I went to go see the first movie, something that my parents weren't expecting. Well, I saw it with my dad the first time, and he didn't know that Pokemon only said their names. Mm-hmm. And he went to the movie, and I remember years later, he told me, he's like, oh my God, all they said was their names. I was about to go crazy. Mm-hmm. I think same thing with my mom when she would I'd have it on TV. It would drive her crazy because would just be like, Pika, 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 Pika.
Yeah, they just say their names ad nauseum.
Yeah. My dad's like, oh my God, get me out of here.
That's why Digimon was a little different because they actually spoke English, so you could actually understand what they're saying.
Oh God, yeah, Digimon.
Other than Meowth in the Pokemon universe, he actually it actually shows like the struggles he went through to try and learn to speak English. So he could speak English. Technically, Mewtwo could telepathically. And then so did Ghastly in one of the episodes.
And Lucario.
Yeah, Lucario does. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was funny. Mm-hmm. And actually, that's kind of the first movie. That's where I saw my favorite Pokemon for the first time was Mew. Mm-hmm. Mew is my all-time favorite Pokemon.
Yep, because it probably looks like a cat.
Well, duh, yes, of course. Why do you think I like it so much?
And the cute little...
And it's pink. Mm-hmm. And little... Oh, my, yeah, I saw it and I was obsessed.
I went through a series of what my favorite Pokemon was. Like, before... as I was watching the anime as they were coming out, I'm like, oh my God, Onix is awesome. Onix is my favorite Pokemon. Then I saw how awesome Ghastly was, basically doing all kinds of things and like merging into turning into different Pokemon in the anime. I'm like, I kind of like Ghastly now. And then when Pokemon the first movie came out with Mewtwo, I'm like, oh, there's no one beating Mewtwo. He's the most awesome, powerful Pokemon out there. So Mewtwo is definitely by far and away my favorite. Even still today, he is my favorite.
Mew is my favorite.
Mewtwo for the win. Far more, he could kick Mew's butt.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I have, in our room on one of those, that little shelf by our bed, I have a Mew figurine right there. Mm-hmm.
Little Mew.
I'm trying to think. Obviously Caterpie was another one of my favorites because that was just the first Pokemon that I really saw, and I was like, oh my God. And who I like, what are some of my other favorites?
Well, I know Pikachu was actually not supposed to be like the iconic Pokemon of the franchise.
No, wasn't it supposed to be Clefairy?
Yeah, it's supposed to be like, Clefairy or one of the other Pokemon, but for some reason Pikachu just stuck or resonated with people, and that's why the original card for Pikachu looks so much different. He's like a really chubby looking mouse.
Oh, speaking of Pikachu, one of the other games we didn't talk about, Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee.
Yep.
I love those games. We have Let's Go Eevee.
Yep. That one, it's an interesting game because that ties into Pokemon Go. Like, you can actually link up the two with this little thing called a Pokeball Plus. So.
Well, should we talk about Pokemon Go?
That's, tie it in from the 90s into now. So, a bunch of other games came out. Obviously, we kind of skipped past all the, Game Boy Advance games. I played a little bit of Fire Red, but not that much.
Was there like Gold and Silver and?
I got into Gold and Silver and Crystal. That was like the last thing I did, and then I kind of moved on from it for a while. Missed out on like Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, and then I think it was the Nintendo DS games. What was it? Black and White.
Oh yeah.
So those went on. Never really got into that stuff, and then all of a sudden, I believe it was 2014. Google came out with an April Fool's ad talking about becoming a Pokemon master using Google Maps to find Pokemon around the world.
Oh, yeah, and they said, oh, yeah, you'll get a job at Google if
you'll be a certified Pokemon master. They did it as an April Fool's joke. The joke was on them because they got such an immense response that this actually turned into, light bulbs started going off in everybody. They're like, you know what? We have something here. Lo and behold, 2 years later, in 2016, they release Pokemon Go.
Oh, and that it was huge.
And that really was the resurgence of it really captured some of the essence of what we felt back in that late 90s period of Pokemon.
I still say when Pokemon Go came out, that was the closest we were as a society to world peace. Because everybody was out playing together.
They were out in the middle of the night. They'd be walking around town or going to the weird thing was it'd be like, they put Pokemon Pokestops and gyms in graveyards. So people would be like walking around graveyards. That's
kind of disrespectful.
That's like a cultural tone deaf thing because I'm sure over in Japan that's more acceptable. People just go and probably go around to graveyards, no big deal. Here in the States, it's a little different.
Yeah. Well, I remember when Pokemon Go came out and people were playing in cemeteries. Mm-hmm. I remember there were cemeteries that were putting up signs.
Yeah, saying do not play this game
do not
here.
play Pokemon Go here. This is not for, be respectful. Do not play Pokemon Go here. Because I remember the cemetery close to where I work had a big old banner posted over the entrance.
Yep. It was a no-go.
Yeah.
A no-go zone.
A no-go Pokemon Go zone.
But that, oh my gosh, it did capture the essence of that nostalgia again. And I'm so excited because if we can have a game like this, I can only imagine in the future, give it another 5-10 years, can you imagine putting on hologram glasses or something like that and actually seeing digital Pokemon out in the wild when you're on a hike or something like that and you catch them? That's what I'm expecting the future of Pokemon to be. It's only going to get sweeter as time goes on.
Well, and I remember too with Pokemon Go coming out, we kind of lucked out because we have a pretty popular park close to our house.
Oh yeah.
And that was just a huge hub for playing Pokemon Go.
It was one of the main hubs in this area, and honestly, it would pack full of people when this thing first came out.
Well, and even today, people still walk around that park and play. Several people do.
Yep. And I remember, because we could get certain Pokemon here that weren't available elsewhere because it was all randomized. So, for some reason, our particular park had a ton of Drowsies when the game first came out. And down in Florida, people were literally just forming giant migration masses of people trying to find one Drowsy.
One of my favorite memories of when the game first came out, I think it had only been out for a week or something, and people were just coming to this park. And I remember one night we were there, everybody was playing, and all of a sudden someone goes, "Hey everybody, there's a war turtle by the VFW," and it's this huge
this group of people just swarming, just ever so slowly starting to move over to the VFW just to catch this war turtle. So, but that was a cool little memory there.
Well, I remember the first, either the first night or the next night, people were walking around people were in their cars blaring the Pokemon theme song.
Oh yeah, us included. So we would just blast that when we were heading by. But it was cool. You could basically drive around the park and basically scan a whole bunch of Pokestops, which would give you more Pokeballs to catch more Pokemon. It was kind of just, always replenishing, which is really cool.
One of the things I liked about Pokemon Go was that so many different age ranges played that game.
It didn't matter how old you are. You could be a little kid. You could be, elderly adult. Did not matter.
I saw old ladies walking around Lake Anna playing Pokemon Go.
Yep.
I wonder whatever happened to this lady, because I remember seeing this one older lady at that park, and she was there pretty regularly when the game first came out, and I wonder if she still plays or if she's still here, but I think about her a lot.
Yep.
I think I was friends with her on the game for a while.
Probably. That was the thing, too. Before, you couldn't really have friends in the game up until, about another year or so later on. 2017 really kind of changed the game because then they came out with the whole, gym battle sequence and everything. And while we're talking about Pokemon Go, I'm also going to drop a little plug in here, too. Also narrated a book on Pokemon Go. So 50 Things to Know About Pokemon Go, written by author Sarah Lynn, narrated by me. If you get a chance, check it out. It's on Audible. Definitely worth it. Full of good tips, and I'll tell you how to catch them all.
And you also do a pretty good Pokemon professor voice.
Absolutely.
During the book.
Yep. All my different voices I do. Better than Damien. Charmander, return.
Bonehead.
Yep. Drop the bomb on that guy.
Yeah.
But, Pokemon Go. Yeah, the battle sequences, you couldn't even go head-to-head with battles for, a couple of years after the fact. But gym battles came before that. And the old gym battle system was so clunky.
It was very clunky.
You basically, once you got to, level 5, you could select different teams. This was new for Pokemon, because in the original games, you never really had a specific team you're part of. You could choose, in Pokemon Go, blue team, Team Mystic, red team, Team Valor, or yellow team, Team Instinct. And at level 5, you get to choose between all those. And for some reason, whether it's because of the center stage effect, like right in the middle was Blue Team, Team Mystic. And I chose Blue Team, unlike you.
I chose Team Valor.
Yep, you chose Team Valor. So those are the two most populated teams in Pokemon Go, because Team Instinct's kind of off.
Not many people picked Team Instinct.
Yeah, they got like a smaller percentage, but yeah, Team Mystic for a while, they ruled the roost. And now they created a thing where like basically you can swap teams. I think like what for?
You have to pay money to swap teams.
Correct.
Oh, I have spent so much money on Pokemon.
Oh, that's
we both have.
It is a money pit, but honestly, it's so much fun.
Well, and I remember years ago, I'm like, I'm not going to spend money on phone games. That's so stupid. And we've probably spent hundreds
out the window, and that's
Pokemon Go.
That was the purpose of that, and the whole thing too with. Because obviously they had like the different raid passes that you could buy and stuff like that. They created more things, incubators, so you can walk. And
remote. I've spent so much money on remote raid passes because
they invented those recently.
Instead of, if I'm feeling lazy, instead of driving down to the park to go play at a gym, I could just do remote from
exactly.
here.
You could sit there on your couch in your house and like, hey, the church down the street's a gym and it's got this thing. It's going to hatch in about 5 minutes.
Well, remember in March of 2020, we were actually going to go
to the Safari Zone. I think it was St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah, St. Louis, Missouri.
We were basically, we both bought Safari because they had like these big events. They had the Pokemon Go Fest. What was that? I think like a year before or something like that.
Yeah.
Turned out to be such kind of a disaster just because like everybody was using the cell networks. It basically crashed the networks. Nobody could get anything. And then they started coming up with like, okay, we'll pick out certain areas and then we'll basically, go accordingly. So they created these things called Safari Zone events. So you had to buy in advance. I think it was like $25 a ticket. So we spent like $50 and we were supposed to go, late March of 2020, I believe, to St. Louis, Missouri. The pandemic happened and it shut everything down.
Well, remember the first thing that happened? We reserved our hotel and we got this notice that they canceled our reservation because something was wrong with our card. I don't know, something with the card. And then literally like a week or two later, the pandemic happened.
Shut everything down.
And they canceled Safari Zone.
Mm-hmm.
And
they issued, I don't know if they issued a refund, but it was weird because they still had the Safari Zone, but you could play from like wherever you were.
You could play from wherever you were.
Which was wild. So we ended up getting a whole bunch of like shiny Pokemon, like shiny Teddy Ursa and everything.
Yeah.
That was the other thing of Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal too. They introduced shiny Pokemon, which if you look up the like percentages of running into a shiny in those games, it was like ridiculously rare. That's why it was such a big deal. And then Pokemon Go, I feel like kind of abused that because like you could get shiny so easily a couple of years ago. Now, I don't know if it's as frequently.
Wasn't there every month there was a community day for a specific Pokemon? Like
and
it might be a Squirtle day or something.
And you could just load up on a whole bunch of shiny Pokemon.
But I have had a couple community days where I have got 0 shinies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, which...
That's what I mean. I think they fixed the algorithm.
Was it Magic? I forget. I can't remember which one, but there's been happened twice where I have gotten 0 shinies.
Yep, that happens.
You know what shiny I am still on the hunt for that I have not got? The Golden Bidoof.
Yeah, that's one I kind of want too.
I thought you had that.
Yeah.
Did your friend trade it to you?
No, I never got the Golden Bidoof. I ended up getting a Tropius, that's the other thing with Pokemon Go. Certain Pokemon are region locked, so you need to travel across the pond somewhere to go get it. So like Tropius, you need to go to Africa. Or
unless you're a spoofer and you could...
Yeah, and then you basically... Spoofing is basically what you're able to tap into the networks or something like that and just pretend you're in a certain area and they'll pop up like on a map.
See, I would never want to do that because your account could get banned.
Exactly. You jeopardize your account, which could get banned.
If you think about it, so Pokemon Go came out in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
It's been almost 10 years.
Yep.
I have worked almost 10 years on this game. I would not want to get it almost banned.
Well, I remember when the max level cap used to be like, level 20, right? When it first came out. And now it's level 40. But I just remember the old like gym sequences were so different because you could load up to 10 Pokemon per given team, which was usually Team Mystic. So I couldn't battle anybody who was in my same team gym. And it would just sit there for a while. And then if you had Pokemon that were sitting in these gyms, they would generate Pokecoins for you. And that was in-game currency. So instead of spending all this cash, like, you'd spend like, what is it, $1 for like 50 Pokecoins or something like that. you could basically just leave your Pokemon in gyms and they would generate 50 Pokecoins a day or more. Like, because when they first started, it was actually a lot more.
Well, because you can still earn Pokecoins, but I don't think it's
a max
much.
cap of $50 or 50 coins a day.
Yeah.
So that's basically it. They really cheesed it out of you.
I remember I put a Pokemon at this gym's. It was in the middle of nowhere somewhere. I think it's when we went on a road trip. I put a Pokemon at this gym, and it was there for weeks.
Oh, yeah.
It was for weeks. It was there.
Well, there was a thing, too, where me and James went down to Lock 4, and there was this one gym that just stood the test of time. Nobody could take it down because it was just full of, back then, one of the hardest ones to put in a gym, Dragonite. Dragonite was a tank. So it was just full of a whole bunch of Dragonites. Up to 10 people were part of that gym. Nobody was taking that thing down. We go there, and somebody, like, there's a Team Valor that's taking down the Team Mystic gym, and, yeah, they're just knocking out all the Dragons. Like, oh, my God, James, they're going to, like, knock them out. And there's this thing you could do back then with the old gym system where as soon as they defeat any gym, like immediately, like the gym will turn into like a neutral gray color. You can jump in and snipe and put a Pokemon there real quick.
Yeah, you can't do that anymore.
James and I, like, we waited and waited and waited in our car, sitting there, like, holding our breath. And as soon as they beat it, we quickly put in a couple Pokemon, laughed our asses off. And there was like a group of Pokemon players. We're pissed, looking around.
Who did that?
Let's go, 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 go.
Yeah, you definitely can't do that anymore.
No, not the new one. Now they have like a courtesy thing where it's like, if you were part of the team that beat this gym, now you get first dibs for putting it into the new gym, which gives you chances for like however long you hold this gym, you'll get coins for. So up to 50 Pokecoins in a given day. So, which obviously kind of makes sense for that system, but I still feel like it shortchanges you big time compared to the old system. The one thing I loved about when it first came out was, like, you didn't know where these Pokemon were, so we thought, like, you know, mind's going crazy. Like, okay, if we go out to, like, a nature park, we're going to run into more, like, you know, grass Pokemon or bug Pokemon. If we go to the beach, we're going to run into more water Pokemon. We didn't know. And one thing we found out was, like, certain Pokemon are region locked. So we actually found out, like, Heracross is available in Florida. So if you go down, like, right around the state line of Florida, you'll get a Heracross. And then
same thing with Corsola, too.
Corsola is actually region locked in, like, I think it follows along with, like, it's a parallel somewhere on the map. And if you go down, I think around Orlando and Tampa, and below that, you can actually run into Corsola along with Heracross. So
there's another Pokemon that's in Florida, and I'm pulling up my Pokemon Go game now because I can't remember what it's called. Mm-hmm. It's a cactus one.
Yeah. It's one of the newer ones.
Hold on, I can't.
Cacnea?
No, not Cacnea.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a little floating pinata looking guy.
Oh, what is it friggin' called?
Yeah. But there were certain Pokemon you can only catch in certain regions. Like Mr. Mime was only available in Europe, so you had to go to Europe to get him. Farfetch was only in Japan. Kangaskhan was only in Australia, fitting for kangaroos.
That's going to bug me.
Yeah, you'll find it eventually.
No. What is it called?
But that was one of the cooler things they had about Pokemon Go, because it encouraged you to travel.
Maractus.
Yes,
that's what you can find it in Florida.
Well, now they have a whole bunch of other regionals too, which I've kind of lost track of, and including when we went to that Safari Zone event, I think they actually had a special region lock Pokemon that came to the Safari Zone.
Well, that's one of the things I do like about Pokemon Go, because it introduced me to the generations of Pokemon that came
the newer
later,
ones.
Because
we had no clue.
Well, as I got older, like I said, I didn't really pay much like the newer Pokemon stuff that came out. Like I loved the Kanto and the Johto regions. Like those are what I was familiar with.
But the Hoenn and all the other ones, I was kind of like, I knew a little bit about the Hoenn region and then a couple of the other ones, but I'm just like, I wasn't like fully into it like I was the original games. And that's why when this game first came out, it started with Kanto, moved on to Johto, and it kind of naturally went through the progression of the different seasons of Pokemon.
Become more familiar with some of the newer Pokemon that have come out.
It was able to introduce you, and especially when you were able to link up Pokemon Go with Let's Go Eevee or Let's Go Pikachu, like it introduced even more games. And if you bought the Pokeball, Pokemon Plus, and hooked it up to Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu or Let's Go Eevee, it actually came with a Mew inside if you bought it brand new.
Yeah.
You could port Mew into your game and play with it. It was awesome. So that was a cool little feature. And then I guess you could get, like, what was it, Melmetal, and port that to your Pokemon Go game. You could transfer Pokemon, I think, from your Go game into Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, but you could transport like a special box that allowed you to get Melmetals.
I still don't have a Melmetal.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have the is it Meltan's the little guy?
Maybe it was Meltan. Yeah.
So
but it'll evolve into a Melmetal.
But you need 400 Meltan candies
yeah.
to evolve it into a Melmetal, and you never see them out in the wild.
Well, that was like the thing of like getting Gyarados too, because it took like 400 candies to evolve a Magikarp into a Gyarados.
Well, remember we went to Lot 4, and there were
it was a Magikarp hub back then
everywhere,
and we just caught a whole ton of them. We finally got a Gyarados, and then like shortly after we like evolved the Gyarados, a wild one popped up, and it had like this ridiculously small like fighting power. It was like CP37 Gyarados, and like what a laughable little thing.
Yes.
So Pokemon, even though, like I said, it's been through the years, everything, it still holds a special place in our heart. Oh my gosh, Pokemon Go definitely tapped on that nostalgic nerve. It was great.
Remember the first Pikachu we ever got was at Grandpa's Cheese Barn?
Oh yeah, we were going nuts.
We were driving around, and I think Jeremy, your brother, was with us. And we're like, Pikachu's at Grandpa's Cheese Barn.
Yep, we pulled in, like, oh my god, there he is. But apparently I found it, and this is in that Pokemon Go audiobook I narrated too. There's actually a cheat when you first start up Pokemon Go. You start a game, you create your character, and immediately when you pop into your game, you'll see Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur. They're just, chilling right there. If you wait long enough, eventually they'll disappear, reappear again, disappear again. After like a couple of times, Pikachu will appear too, and you could start as Pikachu with your first Pokemon catch. So that's one of the tips from the book, which is really cool.
That is pretty cool.
Because that one I didn't know, because we played Pokemon Go for a while before we finally got a Pikachu, because they were hard to find back then.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's why I remember we were so excited when we found it at Grandpa's Cheese Barn.
We're just like, oh my gosh, we finally got this stinking thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember they were either closed or getting ready to close, and we pulled into the parking lot, and I think some of the people who worked there were like watching us.
Oh yeah, they were like, what the heck are these people doing?
It's like, I'm sorry, we're just playing Pokemon.
Yeah, just playing some games, man.
You know what was always what was funny to me about Pokemon Go is when we were playing at the park, the police would be playing too.
Oh yeah.
Like, I remember, didn't we walk by a cop car and they're like, hey, did you guys see that Onyx down there?
Mm-hmm. Well, when the game first came out, there was a whole bunch of, like, jailbreaking systems with, like, scanners where you could download, like, third-party apps that would tell you, like, where Pokemon would spawn. Like, we'd be like, okay, the far side of the lake right now, there's this rare Pokemon. Let's go over there and go catch it.
Well, I remember there'd be times at night you'd be looking at the scanner. Like, I remember one time, it was a Snorlax, I think, and we found it. We drove like halfway across town to catch this Snorlax.
Yep.
And it ended up it popped up in some like random person's driveway.
Yep. Yeah, this game was very random, and like that's why I couldn't understand like why things spawned where they did. I'm like, that makes no sense. But
remember how before in the game, Go before a Pokemon would show up, like little leaves would be like popping up,
rustling.
Yeah, and then the Pokemon would pop up.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember the weird footprint thing they used to have, where it's like, however many footprints, like, supposed to designate how far away you were from said Pokemon.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a thing back then. Now I think they got rid of that.
They did.
So now it's basically like, it'll show Pokemon, like, nearest to a local Pokestop, I think is what they do.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes a little bit more sense. So, and we didn't even understand how, like, the incense worked or, like, lure modules or any of that other stuff. We were just all kind of winging it back then. And it was about the fun, because it really did. It was a phenomenon all over again. People were getting into it. And I remember this one girl, when they first introduced the whole gym battle sequences, it was, do you remember this? It was, they had, I think, a contest, and I think Team Mystic, won the contest. So the very first Pokemon that you would face in gyms was Lugia and Articuno.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember going around Lake Anna, and there was a family there with a little girl, and they were all involved in this raid. A raid could hold up to 20 people, like fighting like any big, battle. So we were fighting this Articuno, got all the way down, like we beat it. The little girl's just jumping happy. Yeah, we beat it. Bro. And then I proceed to catch it. I think you proceed to catch it. A lot of people caught it. The little girl didn't.
Oh,
she ran out of Pokeball. She said, what happened? What happened? And her dad's just like, well, you didn't catch it. And she was just devastated.
I remember.
Core memory made right there, and I'm just like, oh, poor little girl.
Weren't you and James like doing Articuno raids like crazy trying to catch one because James could not catch one?
Poor James. Oh my gosh, we were going all around like basically Northeast Ohio. We literally started early in the day. We were trying to get all these different raids, and I ended up catching a couple Lugias early in the day, and then I caught a couple of Articunos, and for some of a reason, he just could not catch the darn thing. We were going all around town, and finally, like, they shut off the raids after a certain time. I think it was, like, right around 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
We got all the way to, like, the final raid. It was an Articuno raid. He finally caught it at 8 o'clock, and he gave me the hardest high five I have ever felt. Left my hand numb. It was like so excited. I'm like, holy crap.
Oh, remember we went to one of the local metro parks and we were playing Pokemon Go with one of the park rangers?
Oh, yeah.
We did a Zapdos raid with him, I think.
Yeah, he's just like random ranger. He's over there. He's just like, hey, this makes my day. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, because I think we were stopped there. He's like, hey, are you guys doing this raid? And we're like, yeah.
That was a Moltres raid, so he ended up getting like...
Was it Zapdos or Moltres?
It was Moltres. I think he got a shiny one, so he was all excited.
Yeah.
So we made his day. So, but that's kind of cool, too, like the random encounters you would have with people. And that's why you said, closest we probably felt to world peace, because we would drive around, just meet up with random strangers, talk with them, because everybody had a mutual interest in the game, so it was kind of like a nice, segue into getting to know people. So, and that's kind of the beauty of the game. And honestly... if you could live in any fantasy genre or any fantasy, creative world or anything, Pokemon by a mile. Oh my gosh, so serene, so peaceful. The message behind everything and just, the feel of it is just awesome.
Well, and with Pokemon Go too, back when I was more active on Twitter, people would post their friend codes on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
And just because there used to be where you'd have to do special research challenges where make 10 new friends. So people post their friend codes. I have Pokemon friends I have I have 2 from Japan. I have 2 from Germany. I have a couple from South America. So it's I have friends all over the world.
Yep. And the cool thing too with the friends thing, because they added this later on, they could send you postcards. Every time you spin a Pokemon or Pokestop, you would get a little indicator thing. They basically take a picture of, on a Pokestop, they would show a photo of whatever Pokestop it was. They'll turn that into a postcard that you can send as a gift to friends.
And you can actually, I don't know if you've seen, they have a postcard book now in the game. So you can save the postcards you get from different places.
Which I'm glad they added that, because before it was kind of oh, this is really cool, and I kind of don't want to lose it. Or
I think even ones that you find yourself, you can save to your book too.
See, that's nice. I'm glad they have that option. The stickers are kind of cool too, because now they added stickers. You basically sticker any postcard. So, but they've added a lot of cool things to the game, and then they try to take away the remote raid passes.
They tried to, or they were going to, and then people were about to riot.
Yeah, but the whole reason they invented those things was because of the pandemic. Because people were able to gather in mass, and that's the worst thing you could do during a pandemic, because you're trying to stop the spread of everything, and gathering a whole bunch of people outside in random areas.
I mean, it's probably not as bad because you're outside, but I mean, you're still all together.
That's what I mean. Social distancing was such a big deal. Yeah. And Pokemon Go was completely caught off guard. They're like, crap, what do we do? So they basically came up with a remote raid pass. So a person could basically be sitting in their car playing with a raid where someone else is sitting in their car way down the way. You're social distancing. Hey, great. So that was how they were basically stay afloat during that whole thing. And then,
they probably made a crap ton of money.
Oh yeah,
on remote raid passes.
Well, just from the whole microtransaction thing in general, it's got to be making multiple millions at this point, if not at least $1 billion. And then think about after that happened, they ended up coming out with event tickets.
Yeah.
So for a couple bucks you can participate in this event, or for $5 you can do this event.
Actually, I think GoFest is coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, they still have GoFest going on. I think that might be bigger than a Safari Zone event. So Safari Zone was kind of more.
Well, let's see. Yeah, so Pokemon GoFest 2024 is $14.99.
Yep, and it takes place in July this year, doesn't it?
Yep.
So get your tickets, kids. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I actually just opened up my Pokemon Go game right now to see what's around.
Now, you don't have to be in any specific area, because the original first Go Fest, I believe, was in Chicago, Illinois.
Which I think that got overrun very quickly with the amount of people that
they overloaded the servers for the cell servers, and it kind of crashed the game a little bit.
Yeah, it's a global ticket.
That's what I mean. So you can basically play wherever you are, I'm pretty sure. You don't have to be in a designated area.
You have to purchase it by June 6th.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, it says purchase by June 6th and play between May 31st and June 6th for timed research that awards the Moon Crown avatar item. Ooh.
Oh boy, more gimmicks. The one gimmick I can't stand in Pokemon Go is the stupid novelty hat nonsense.
Okay, I am complete opposite. I love those stupid novelty hats and the sunglasses.
I've got so many Pikachus taking up my stinking inventory
they're so
box.
cute, though.
Oh my gosh, I got a Pikachu with a sombrero, a Pikachu with a bowler hat, Pikachu with a ghost costume.
My favorite one's the Pikachu with the balloons.
Mm-hmm.
Those are cute.
I've got so many stinking Pikachus now. Before, think about it. Yeah, we were all excited finally catching our first one. Little did we know, I've got 500 just taking up a whole bunch of room in my inbox. Like, give me a break.
I'm a sucker for stuff like that. I can't help it.
The novelty stuff, I got tired of real quick. And you can't evolve them.
Actually, some of them, I think they changed it because a lot of the newer ones you can.
I hope so. Because, before it was just like, I can't evolve this one. Like, really?
Yeah, because I think I saw...
Party Hat Pikachu can't evolve it?
I had a Vulpix. It was like a Halloween one, and you're able to evolve it.
Can I finally evolve my Party Hat Bulbasaur?
I think so.
I have to go back and check it.
I'm not sure, like I said, the older ones. But the newer ones with the novelty stuff, you can evolve, I believe.
Going back to when we first played this thing, because I remember seeing when Pokemon Go first came out, I was sitting in bed. I realized what day it was. I'm like, oh my gosh, the game's out now. I downloaded the game, and right at the foot of my bed pops a Squirtle. And that's my very first Pokemon I caught.
Yeah, because I remember we were in bed, and I'm like, oh my God.
I was like, I just caught a Squirtle. And you're like, what? And
So
then
I downloaded it.
And what was your first Pokemon catch?
Charmander, of course.
So, wrong answer.
Bad take.
Nope. Squirtle for the win.
No, Charmander.
But good old Squirtle. But I remember I was just so overjoyed, like, oh my gosh, this game's gonna be like revolutionary, and it really was. So.
Well, I remember finally catching a Mew in Pokemon.
Oh my gosh, that event.
So, well, no, I remember catching it, and as stupid as this sounds, I almost teared up when I caught my Mew.
In Pokemon Go?
In Pokemon Go, yes.
I was going to say, there's a way you can catch him in the original, like, blue and red version games, which I know how to do. So, and I remember I ended up, like, cloning it, so I have, like, a whole bunch of copies of him. But, catching him in Pokemon Go, it was one of those things where it's like, you have infinite Pokeballs, you're eventually going to catch him. So.
Well, and then they also had the Shiny Mew event in Pokemon Go, so the Shiny Mew is blue.
Yep. We ended up getting that one.
Yeah, but I did. I literally almost teared up when I caught my Mew, which sounds really dumb. But
all the memories. Yeah, I just remember
Veronica Taylor.
Yep.
Oh my God, we haven't even talked about her yet.
Yep.
Okay, so we've talked about Pokemon Go quite a bit, but I think the pinnacle of our Pokemon experience was meeting Veronica Taylor.
Yep. The first voice actor for Ash Ketchum in the Pokemon series, the main protagonist of the game. Veronica Taylor is Ash Ketchum. Yeah,
especially for our generation, like, that's our Ash Ketchum.
Oh, yeah.
So we went to, wasn't it Comic-Con?
It was a Comic-Con that we had down in Canton, Ohio, and she was there, and she was the centerpiece of that whole thing. Like, her line was around the block, down the road. Everybody wanted to see Veronica Taylor, and we finally met her, and it was just an awesome experience. She's so sweet.
She was so nice. Like, she was so nice, and I was a bit starstruck.
Oh, yeah.
A minute. Like, when, in SpongeBob, when he meets Kevin the sea cucumber, it's like, hi, Kevin. That's kind of how I felt with Veronica Taylor.
We ended up picking up a cool little, because they have, like, little pamphlets there that you can have, like, pictures from, like, different voice acting things she's done in the past.
Yeah.
Like, she did a voice for, like, Dragon Ball Super and stuff like that. But I picked up a little thing of a picture of Ash Ketchum and had her sign that. We also brought an Ash Ketchum Pokemon League hat.
Yes.
The red and white hat with the big green swish on it.
Which was technically your hat, but I kind of stole it.
Yeah, Ashley kind of confiscated that hat. And she said, please sign this for me. And she wrote this really nice little, like, personal message just saying, to Ash from Ash. So.
And I wish that I would have gotten a picture, because she did the voice of Sailor Pluto.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wish I would have had her sign that. But yeah, she was so nice.
Yep. And I remember just before we were getting ready to leave her, I turned around and asked her to. I'm just like, Veronica, I'm a big fan. I love all the stuff you've done as Ash Ketchum and everything. I said, how do you get into voice acting? I would love to know what's the next step to take. She turned to me and said, take acting classes. And that stuck with me. So,
What you've been looking into.
Oh, absolutely. So, but that's an interesting insight into, the world of voice acting. So taking acting classes was her advice. So super sweet to meet her. Oh my gosh. She's awesome.
Yes, that was.
And it was, like you said, a starstruck moment where it's like, oh my gosh, it's Ash Ketchum right here.
Oh my God, Ash Ketchum's right here. And I remember we went to, didn't we go to a panel with her?
Oh yeah.
And she was doing the Ash Ketchum voice. And,
yep. It was like a Q&A session, and people were asking her like different questions of like, what's your favorite episode and this and that. And when we finally got to meet her in line after all this time, she actually brought up how, she's Ash Ketchum. She's like, because we brought up that Ashley's name's Ashley. She said, oh, I played Ashley in the anime too. I'm like, oh my gosh. I hearkened back to that episode where Ash goes against Erica and insults Erica about like how she's big into perfumes.
Yeah.
Like, why would you want to mess with any stinky, smelly perfume? He gets kicked out. He dons a costume with a wig and pretends to be Ashley to sneak back in. And that's Veronica Taylor's like real voice. She's acting like Ash, acting as a girl. It's like double acting.
Yeah.
And I brought up that episode to her, and her eyes lit up, and she's like, "That's right, it's that exact episode."
But it's funny how it was Ashley and Erica. Ashley, Erica.
How fitting, right? But the fact that, like, you know, I just recalled that Pokemon once again, it is stuck in our minds. Like, oh my gosh, you could recite almost all those episodes so long ago.
Yeah, we got a picture with her.
We did. So I got that thing posted on our Instagram and Facebook.
Yep.
Oh. But yeah, if you ever get the chance to meet Veronica, definitely do. Super sweetheart. She's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Because I know sometimes they say, "Oh, don't meet actors or don't meet your
heroes and stuff like that." No, Veronica Taylor is awesome.
She was very, very nice. Mm-hmm. Her daughter was cool too, because her daughter was part of her panel too, and I think she was helping out at like the autograph booth and stuff. Her daughter was really nice too.
Absolutely. Well, I think she's probably got bragging rights too. It's like, my mom's Ash Ketchum.
Yeah.
There is another lady that ended up taking the mantle of Ash Ketchum because there was kind of like a falling out between like the original voice. I don't know if it was like a corporation switch up or something, where a lot of the old voice actors basically got replaced with newer voice actors, and they proceeded to take over the mantle for like, you know, all the way up until the ending of Pokemon. So, and I think the lady who replaced Veronica ended up winning a lot of awards and stuff too. So,
yeah.
But our Ash Ketchum is really Veronica by far and away. So, she's our Ash Ketchum.
Yes, 100%.
So, awesome stuff. Lots of Pokemon. We will have many more Pokemon pods in the future here too, because this thing is, you know.
Well, as we were mentioning certain people's names, and I'm sure like they could add. Oh, like our friend James, I'm sure.
Oh, he'll definitely add to this thing.
He would, yeah. Well, he was big into Pokemon Go for a long time.
Kevin was big into the card game too. We'll bring Kevin on here to talk about like the card collections from back in the day. And I don't know if he really got into Pokemon Go that much. James did. James was huge into Pokemon Go, like we were. So
Jeremy was into. Was Sean into Pokemon?
Sean was into the.
Well, you just said you went to his house when you were a kid to play.
Yeah, he played the games. He had, I think, some of the cards, but. Like I said, we could bring Sean on. We could bring the whole guys in here, have a roundtable session, so just so we can all talk about
It'd be a sausage party.
Oh no,
I'd be.
It'd be a great discussion panel, a nice roundtable, Pokemon roundtable, if you will. Knights of the Round Table. Dun, dun, dun,
Okay.
dun.
That's gonna be stuck in my head. Clark Gable.
Yep. Good old Monty Python reference there. Well, we really do have a roundtable set up here. I could have up to 4 people here on the pod, so. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in for this episode. So many more Pokemon episodes to follow from this one, but thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on It All Depends on the Situation.